Donald Trump must think after this raid, wow, the Democrats have really now overplayed their hand, turned him into a hero even, because he's immediately released one of the most powerful election ads that I have seen. Now, I know Trump hasn't actually confirmed he's running for president again, but watch this and you're in no doubt at all.
We are a nation where free speech is no longer allowed, where crime is rampant like never before, where the economy has been collapsing, where more people died of COVID in 2021 than in 2020. But soon we will have greatness again. It was hardworking patriots like you who built this country, and it is hardworking patriots like you who are going to save our country. There is no mountain we cannot climb. There is no summit we cannot reach. Because we are Americans, and Americans kneel to God and God alone. And it is time to start talking about greatness for our country again.
Joining me is Barbara Heineback, who was a press officer, the wife of Democrat President Jimmy Carter, and then an advisor to Democrat President Bill Clinton. Barbara, great to catch up with you again. That ad,
and you,
how effective
Andrew,
do you think it will be?
Wow. It was powerful, and it was all in black and white right up till the end. So you just got the simplicity with numbers and facts, not hyperbole. And I don't know what the FBI has done this time around is just so unprecedented. Even Nixon had to abdicate the throne, but he was never put in prison. There was no prosecution. So this is a new day for America, and we're going down a slippery slope if we don't stop this one party against the other party. And they're forgetting all about the citizens of America and justice and also democracy. What I found so interesting, all of the people that have come to Mar-a-Lago since yesterday, a lot of them are people from Central and South America, individuals who've come to the U.S., they've gone through the citizenry according to the appropriate manner, and they are the ones that left banana republics. And if we're not careful, this is what a banana republic is, when you have one party against the other, and they're just going to disregard any and everything that was good for a country or its people just to bring in a new regime.
We've talked a lot about how unfit for office US President Joe Biden now seems, so vague, so unfocused, physically weak, unable now at times to even put on a jacket without the help of his wife. And yesterday saying, that there was zero inflation in America that month, where technically there'd been no increase in inflation that month, but inflation's still 8.5%. But the tragedy for America is that the person who'd take over if he can't go on is Vice President Kamala Harris, who will say the wildest things without blinking. Here's her latest.
We cut child poverty in America by 40% in the first year.
Child poverty down 80%, 40% in 1 year in America. I'm calling bull.
Yes, this is an interesting comment from Kamala, and it's an example of sort of selective numbers that she's pushing forward. She's talking about the child tax credit, which was a COVID program that was extended to families in 2021. And that's where she's saying that somehow the child poverty rate was cut by 40% because of the extension of this tax credit. Well, the thing is, Andrew, the official child poverty rate, according to the US Bureau of Statistics, in 2020 was 16%. And while we don't have the official number for 2021 yet, the Columbia University's Center for Policy for Poverty and Social Policy said in December 2021, the child poverty rate was 12.1%. So it did go down a bit, certainly not 40%. I don't know who's doing her maths, but that's not 40%. The problem is, Andrew, that she's leaving something really awkward out.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, perfect example, about the most woke political leader in the world, lecturing Canadians just a couple of weeks ago, by the way, got to wear face masks, and the coal and gas industries, like everyone else, they got to slash global warming emissions. Here he is.
A little over 40% emission cuts compared to where we are today.
Yeah, this same Justin Trudeau then pops his family in a private jet to go fly to Costa Rica last week, and without wearing, apparently, any face masks. What does this tell you, Brendan?
The amount of hypocrisy in the environmental movement is extraordinary. Very often what we have here are wealthy, well-connected people telling the masses to learn to live with less, to stop being so greedy, to stop going on holidays, to stop having so many children, while they themselves are flying around in private jets, going to all sorts of fancy places, expending far more carbon than the rest of us do. You know, you've got Justin Trudeau, the king of virtue signaling, who commits these kinds of eco-crimes with impunity by the looks of it. John Kerry, who lectures us about climate change all the time and then takes a private jet to go to Barack Obama's 60th birthday party. Harry and Meghan, there's a new book about them which says that they took private jets like the rest of us take Ubers. And then they use the pages of Vogue magazines to lecture us all about climate change. So real high levels of hypocrisy, and sums up that environmentalism is increasingly about the rich telling the rest of us what to do.
The way global warming alarmists are scaring our children amounts to, well, to me at times, to child abuse. The people in our schools, in the media, in our parliament, all running ludicrous scares. Poor kids. You could see the effect on one child last week, chosen by the ABC on its Q&A show last Thursday, to ask this question. And note, not one person on the Q&A panel, even the chief executive of the CSIRO, our national science agency, told her her fears were baseless.
With your current plan, will my generation even reach 50? Younger generations don't trust the government. We just think it's a massive joke. So why should we put our little remaining faith into something that may not even help us in the long term? What then? Why should we trust it or you?
Jenny? Oh, yes.
Can I just ask how old you are, Hannah?
13.
So, Hannah, what do you want to do when you leave school, or what is it?
I want to go into zoology, but honestly, at the rate we're going, might not be any animals left to study.
That is so sad. A child tells you her nightmares, and shouldn't you be saying, well, look, they're not real. They're not real. Hannah, let me assure you, global warming is not going to kill you before you're 50. It's actually producing, for one, more crops to feed people. And the animals are not going to be wiped out. Look at polar bears. They said they were getting wiped out. There's actually more now. Someone has been lying to you. Don't worry. You can bank on it. A government that tries to plan the economy almost always stuffs it up. Soviet Union, the lesson. But Labor does not learn. The Prime Minister has a plan to get us to buy electric cars, nearly 90% electric cars, not petrol, just 8 years from now. Global warming and all that, you see. Not that any of this will make much difference, because for a start, electric cars run on electricity, and 2/3 of our electricity comes from fossil fuels. And of course, these cars take more energy to make. But Labor insists nearly 90% of new car sales in Australia by 2030 will be electric, when just 1.5% are today. How's that going to happen? Well, Labor's going to offer tax breaks, and it will be pushed at a summit next month to also impose even tougher emission standards on petrol cars to stop you buying some of them. But there is a reason that so few people are buying these electric cars, and it's why Labor's plans will fail unless it straight out bans petrol cars. One, check our Climate Minister, Chris Bowen, has become only the third Labor MP to own an electric car. His Tesla is just a standard one, yet still costs $60,000. And he bought it using his parliamentary allowance for it. Well, how many other Australians could afford that and have a car allowance as well? But there's another big problem. Recharging these cars, especially if you drive between cities. And it's not just the lack of charging stations, which the CEO of Mitsubishi Australia said on the weekend would require billions of dollars and a number of years to build, which is why he's not rushing out fully electric vehicles here. There's also the charging times, very basic problem. Labor's plans for a kind of Aboriginal-only parliament look day by day like the start of apartheid. Today, for instance, I've warned it's a mistake to just ignore Green Senator Lydia Thorpe as some sort of race-baiting, attention-seeking extremist who even called her own white father a racist. All that's true. But yesterday I said Thorpe is actually the Justice spokesman for the Greens, which won nearly 13% of the vote, and she would be promoted by the media. So you've got to treat her seriously. And sure enough, today the Age newspaper gave her space to write an opinion piece, it was a news piece too, to let her argue what's been obvious for years. If there is an Aboriginal-only parliament, that is just the start. How about treaties with all the hundreds of so-called Aboriginal nations? That's what she wants, Lydia Thorpe. And when it comes to treaties for Thorpe and the people pushing her, what's on the table is Aboriginal sovereignty, creating Aboriginal nations in law, so kind of apartheid. Now, Thorpe herself has made clear that she owes no allegiance to our Queen or to our Constitution when she last week made a big joke of swearing her oath of allegiance to the Queen, that she called a coloniser.
I, Sovereign Lydia Thorpe, do solemnly and sincerely affirm and declare that I will be faithful and I bear true allegiance to the colonising Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
Senator Thorpe.
And today in the Age newspaper, Thorpe writes, yeah, it's true. When I swore allegiance in the Senate last week, I identified myself as a sovereign woman. And she said, as Aboriginal woman Phoebe McElraith writes, my sovereignty predates the creation of the English language. No parliamentary oath could ever take that away from me. Now, to repeat, Lydia Thorpe is not on her own. And her opinion is that Aborigines, that they can have their own sovereign nations, it's endorsed by no one less than the Albanese government's Indigenous Australians Minister, Linda Burney. And I know this because I took Burney a few years ago for an ABC documentary to what's called the Didingi Aboriginal Nation that activists have declared around Cairns. And I got her to meet its supposed Prime Minister and its Foreign Minister. He issued us with passes to enter this new nation on Australian soil. Listen to how Burney responded to this example of apartheid.
I consider you a fellow citizen, a fellow human being. I don't know why there needs to be some sort of legal separation between you and me where I need a pass just to come and talk to you.
Well, it's a government.
Fascinating exercise. Yeah, I do approve of it.
Now, you may be thinking, what's a few bits of land, creates an Aboriginal nation like that, harmless, as long as they're happy. But right now, believe it or not, Aborigines own, through native title, or have got native title control over half of Australia. Half. And they have land claims that increase their ownership to nearly 2/3 of the continent.